Hello, guys. Chris here from ECGN. I'm joined with Hector, more known as Goose. I first
What's
met
up, man?
Hector back at school. He was a colleague of mine. He was a classical guitarist, doing the wedding gig thing, recording with some people, playing with some chamber ensembles. But his real love and passion came to metal and band music. He
Yeah,
is endorsed by BC Rich Guitars, DiMarzio Pickups, PV Amps, AMM Amplified, as well as FU Tone. He's virtuosic metal player and like quite the talented classical guitarist as well.
thanks,
Hector,
man. Thanks.
thank you so much for sitting down and meeting with me and Mike today. We're thrilled to talk to you about band life versus the solo gig life, since you've done both of those
Mm-hmm.
for like a number of years.
hmm
First, before we get into it, can you just like tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, how you started playing, and your main music tastes or styles?
it's weird. I'm the youngest of three. So I'm Dominican and I'm originally from New York, but I grew up in Union City for the majority of my life, right? So I'm the youngest of three, and my two older sisters would listen to like commercial R&B radio stuff. So when I was a kid, I always liked like pop music and stuff. Obviously, at the late 90s, early 2000s, you had a whole bunch of like pop stars that became super famous. You had the NSYNCs, the Backstreet Boys, the Britney Spears, all that shit. So, I liked that stuff because, I was hanging around my sisters and thought it was cool. But then you fast forward to me being, I don't know, 12, 13, and I just, had a buddy of mine whose older sister was just into extreme metal music, and the rest is history. I fucking heard Pantera for the first time when I was 13. I looked at him and I said, "What the hell is this?" And next thing you know, I've been doing this for like 18 years now.
Cool. Wow. Dude, that's amazing, man. Like, yeah, I played I played in like a punk band when I was younger. I played like some
I mean,
great.
that was like the abridged version, but there was a lot of things in between musically that happened. But that's kind of like the gist of it. It was just like, oh, completely different music taste as a child. Heard something, was like, what the hell is this? And then I looked at him, I was like, that's what I want to be doing for the rest of my life.
Where did classical get involved? Because like you were playing like metal and like popular music, just like I think most guitarists of today. And like I know you said you always liked classical music, but like was it at school where you really discovered more classical guitar music, or was it a little bit prior to that?
I guess discovered actual, like, how do I put this? I discovered more of a classical guitar catalog, because it was always something that I wanted to play, but I just was one of those things that you just say you want to do and you never get around to doing it. So I was at that point. By the time I learned how to play classical guitar, I had been playing electric guitar for already about 8 to 10 years, around that. So by the time I took up playing classical music, the main reason I guess I learned it is because there was no electric guitar option in the college, yeah, at JCU. If there would have been one, it was either classical music or jazz, and I didn't want to do jazz. It's not my thing. But I always really liked classical music, so I figured, hey, this is something I always wanted to do, something I always wanted to learn. Might as well do it now, you know. But I always liked classical music. I always thought it was great. Just one of those things that the sounds and the melodies, and even watching the performers, the classical guitar performers, always just like was always taken back by it. Always loved it.
Cool. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. Nice. So like as a professional musician, you have toured in like 4 to 6 bands in the past decade of your life. Like
Well, I would say one really like big tour, like actual.
big tour. But you played in like hundreds of shows in the past decade.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I mean, just in the last 2 years, I think I did 180 shows with the band I was in prior. But that was like, I would say, my like actual touring band. The other stuff, like I had played a lot of shows around, but I wouldn't say necessarily tour worthy. There were some like mini tours, but at touring extensively, yeah. In the last 2 years, I played like 180 shows, like all over the world.
Wow.
Maybe 170, somewhere along the line. Definitely, definitely up there.
Cool.
Yeah.
So like I've watched like some other things, and I've talked to other guys and like other bands, and like I've talked to other classical guitar musicians when they're doing their tours, and like the mindset. Of course, like when you're preparing for a show, you want to sound tight. Everybody's the same about that when they're preparing for a show. But like when I talk to like classical musicians or jazz musicians, some of them are like, oh yeah, like I have I'm playing with this chamber ensemble, like we're staying in a hotel or I'm staying on like a friend's couch kind of thing or whatever. A lot of bands like like, oh, we're touring, like we're just gonna find whatever motel we can get after the show that night or whatever. So it's like it's very like they're two different mentalities, but like when you're on the road like that and you're doing concerts and concerts and concerts, it's like very different. So like you've done a little bit of both of those. So like, what was your mindset when you were like, okay, I'm playing a wedding today, and then I'm doing like this luncheon the next day, classical, but then the following day I have to go fly to wherever to play with my band.
So a funny story about that. I don't know if that day, remember that I performed the Barrios piece, the Una Limos, and I did a whole bunch of other pieces. I think I did two, and then I did the ensemble. I don't really remember, but what I do remember that day is. I remember as soon as it finished, I was like, yo, I gotta go because I'm playing in like Webster Hall tonight. So I had just done the classical performance in the afternoon. And then I was like, yo, I gotta get the fuck out of here, man. Like, I gotta go play Webster Hall tonight. And that's, that was reminded me of what you said. But as far as like the touring, I was fortunate that touring extensively and long distance, all over Europe and the U.S., the U.K. We had the luxuries of hotel rooms every night and things like that. So I didn't have to deal with the sleeping on the couches on the floors necessarily, but a lot of the bands that toured with us did. I tell people it's like it's not even for us that we have the amenities of. The luxury, I should say, of having a hotel room, that doesn't mean it's all fucking, 5-star hotels every night either. It sucks, man, because it's like, you would think that in music you would get all these luxuries and things like that, but I think it's kind of been the story of the musician all throughout history. It's just like all the effort and all the things the rewards that should come with the high level of skill kind of don't. If that makes any sense. Maybe that might have been a little bit of a tangent.
No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. Like I had what is it? Like I played a luncheon for like an hour or whatnot for like this charity. I don't like it was like beautiful, like a marina kind of thing. And then later that night, like I wasn't performing, but then I went to go catch like my other buddies playing like a sextet somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's just like anyway. Also, like your studio is really cool.
Thank you, man. I put a lot of work into this motherfucker. So
yeah, you did.
Thank you.
So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about recording stuff as well. So like, sometimes like, of course, everybody wants to get the perfect take. Everyone wants to get the perfect take that's like sounds like exactly what it is. Now, from my own experience, when I used to play in a band when I was way younger, like there was times when we had like 3, 4, 5 takes, and then like we took like the best spots from each, and then we just spliced it together. And then from the times when I recorded with like either like the old guitar quintet that I played in, I even did some stuff with a duo and a trio before. Like the times that we recorded then, like we were all trying to just get the perfect sound as we were doing, so it was like more like raw and authentic. Trying to just not get mistakes when we were playing, and whatnot. So like when you're doing the splicing and stuff like that, like as an engineer as well, an audio engineer, when you're recording, what's the mentality through that? Do you try to keep it as raw as possible, or do you keep it as like, okay, like I'll add a note here, whether you're playing nylon, whether you're playing electric, whether you're playing acoustic or whatever, or even if you're just mixing and mastering, you're recording somebody else. Like, what do you do with that?
So my main objective when I'm recording somebody is to capture the spirit of the piece of music. There's just some bands and some artists that shit's all over the place, but it's weird because some people do it well. That like sloppy, these notes, I'm just fucking gonna throw them out there. Some people just have an art for making that sound cool. And if that's what warrants it, if that's what warrants like the take, if that's what they're going for, I just got to make sure I capture it as good as possible, because I think a lot of engineers, they kind of try to take over, or not a lot, but some do. I've definitely seen it. Some try to take over and be like, no, play it like this, play it like this. It's just like, remember, we're like facilitators. We're like okay, everyone, let's get together, let's come up with a game plan, and let's capture this shit so that other people can hear it and other people can enjoy it. So that's my main thing. Is like I try to capture the spirit of what they're going for. Now, as far as I guess the actual editing side, my main thing is like I try to push people to perform well. There's a lot of people who are like in the engineer aspect where there's just like, because that's what we get paid to do. We get paid to edit, splice, put things together. Of course, that's our job. But there's no substitute for a good performance, man. There's no substitute for a good performance. Whether it be a wild, crazy, sloppy one that just happens to fit for their style of music, or a super tight technical, or super, precise classical piece. Mm-hmm. It's just, there's nothing substitutes a good performance or a great performance, I mean, think about it like this. Like, you got motherfuckers that put out music today, and, oh, yeah, it's cool, it's good, but nobody remembers it in 2 to 3 years. Mm-hmm. But we're still talking about some bands, guitarists, drummers, bassists that are long gone, that don't even exist anymore, that unfortunately have passed away. Why? The technology back then was nowhere near as good as now when it comes to audio, or anything really.
True.
Or most things, I should say. Mm-hmm. And guess what? We're still talking about records that, by today's standards, don't sound good. But why are they so amazing? It's the performances. It was the lack of technology that made people have to be more creative, that made them have to play better, made them have to lock themselves in a room and be like, let's fucking play until our fingers fall off, and when we go in the studio, it's gonna be the best that we can. People don't do that nowadays. I have found that, because I do both. I'm the performer, recording, and I record other people. And I have found that a lot of people just don't come prepared to that level that they should in the studio, that I have dealt with. And then it shows in the performances,
Yeah.
So again, it's not, it's just different times. People have technology now, so they can get away with masking certain things. Whereas back in the day, it's like, I'm gonna hit record, and it costs too much fucking money to redo this shit, so you better do it right. Psh,
Of course. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this, your guitar as well. I mean, I'm hoping maybe you can play something for us. I know you have
a little bit.
You have a custom BC Rich guitar.
I've got a few, man.
You've got a few of them.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So like it's very common. A lot of people get like handmade guitars and like acoustic or nylon. And a lot of people have handmade guitars. Mm-hmm. That it's the only one in the world. Mm-hmm. You're one of the few people who I know these are like, I know people have handmade custom electric guitars, but you're one of the few people who I know personally who has one of these, who's endorsed by a company. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to like when you were, did they just make this themselves and like, Hector, this guitar is for you, or did you give them like the specs and whatnot?
Well, no. Whenever you do a custom instrument, I mean, it would be great if they're just like mind readers and just like, bang. Mm-hmm. But no, this guitar I've had for a long time, and it's sat in its case for God knows how many fucking years now. And I know, I was just thinking about this shit yesterday. I know why I kept it in its case for, I don't know, as long as I did. Because it's already starting to get scratches. Since I started playing it, like the last week or so, I fucking have scratched the guitar up. The paint's already starting to go in some places because I just like, I'm just pretty like aggressive with how I maintain my guitars. So, but yeah, it's a great guitar, man. And I'm happy to now gotten through that phase where like I don't want to baby it anymore. I want to play it the way it was intended to be played. So, but I have a few. I have a few like one of one custom shop and just handmade BC Riches. Some that I've kept in storage for a long time. Some that I play more regularly. Just recently on the last tour I did, I got over that fear and it took out one of my oldest guitars. It's about 40 years old. And took that vintage BC Rich out on the road, and luckily I still have it. And it's all in one piece.
Cool. Nice. So like, make sure you play a little bit, man. I wanna hear you like shred a little bit. I think that'd be cool.
Sure,
We would like
sure.
to.
I mean,
Thank you.
sure.